I mean, believe it or not, I am too young to remember 1963, Dallas. But I remember sitting in my flat in Dundonald Road years ago when working from home before it was trendy to work from home with the radio on in the background just for some background noise, and I think it was actually just the regular news had come on, and they mentioned that a plane had crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center in New York, and I thought that's a real shame. Oh, it must be a single seater or a 3 or 4 seater plane, a wee private plane. I was picturing in my head, and the pilot's probably had a heart attack or something like that. That's a real shame. But then there was a news flash 2 or 3 minutes later saying a second plane has gone into the other tower of the World Trade Center. This is a terrorist attack. And I put the television on, you could see the actual pictures of what was happening. I was like, oh, geez, my wife was working in the library. She's working in the library at Glasgow Uni at that time, and I'm thinking, oh, it's an attack on all tall buildings in the Western world. I better let her know, get her out of there. No, that's not what happened, but it's something you don't really forget. And a few years earlier, my mate Scott and I, we were out in the West End, a few drinks and all that, and chucking out time. We ended up going to the Chinese, it's on Great Western Road. I don't think it's there anymore. It was a restaurant that had the kind of carry-out bit attached to it. And we were heading back to my flat, still my student flat, and we're going back there to carry on the drinking with a Chinese in hand. And they would give you, with your prawn crackers, a newspaper. You'd get a free edition of a late edition newspaper, a late fine ale kind of thing. And I remember the early editions of the next day's newspaper, and I just remember we're sitting there having the Chinese and looking at the paper, and it said Diana, Princess of Wales, or whatever, former princess. It was still Princess of Wales, I can't remember, but she'd broken her arm. She'd probably broken her arm in this car crash, a wee bump she'd been involved in Paris. Oh, very good, okay, Royals probably get too much coverage. We thought, next day I'll wake up, put on the telly, and why is the coverage, why is the schedule, the TV schedule, the Sunday TV schedule all changed? What is this all about? It take a wee while for it to sink in. Oh my God, she's died. Princess Di is dead, and of course, Dallas, as I say, we all remember Dallas, 1999, in Moscow. Hugh Dallas was the last Scottish referee to referee a European final, and the state of Scottish refereeing, that was Parma beating Marseille by 3-0. Marseille had a lot of players suspended after their semi-final against Bologna, which was a real heated occasion. Lots of sendings off and bookings in that one. I remember that. But Hernan Crespo and all that, really. But future Rangers player involved in that final as well. But I remember that, Hugh Dallas, that was the last time. And Hugh Dallas, of course, he was fourth official in the 2002 World Cup final. I think he was fourth official in the Portugal-France semi-final of Euro 2000 as well. Shug, and of course, famous Celtic Rangers match, famous Old Firm game at Parkhead on the 2nd of May 1999. Arguably my favourite domestic match of all time. And Shug get hit in the face with coins with Celtic fans that day. Kind of knocked him semi-unconscious at the time, and his face was bleeding and what have you. So to make up for that, Celtic appointed a behavioural psychologist to monitor, to review his performance during that game, and Celtic fans put his windows in that night. It's because Rangers won the league at Parkhead. And I remember the 2005 Scottish Cup final, just seen the tail end of that, and Martin O'Neill, great manager for Celtic, and his last act as Celtic manager would obviously be lifting that Scottish Cup in 2005, but his last act in the technical area as Celtic manager was to have a real kind of camp, long, drawn out, TV media attracting stare, dirty look at the linesman. No, Celtic just won the Scottish Cup, but he's looking at the linesman because it's the same linesman that had given Rangers a penalty at Tynecastle late on a few weeks earlier, and rather than Celtic giving away a 1-goal lead to lose the last game of the season at Fir Park against Motherwell, he was letting us all know that was what had cost Celtic the title. The helicopter is changing direction, so Celtic must indulge in deflection, and we don't want to be like that. And that's one thing I've always... I need to... This podcast here, this pod that I'm doing, it's a bonus pod. Rangers don't have a game this week, and I'm usually doing a wee preview pod for a European tie, or for Kilmarnock at home at Ibrox in the league midweek, and then I'll do the post-match reaction pod to said draw with Spurs or hammering of Kilmarnock. So there's nothing like that happening this week. Weirdly, as the manager, as Philip Clement pointed out on TNT on Sunday, I think he was pointing out the fact, no TNT, Premier Sports, as he was pointing out that was kind of weird, a bit strange. I think he said that we actually need a rest between the Spurs game and this League Cup final, but we're not going to get one until after this League Cup final. And he's not saying anything that he can be cited for, but he's making a point there, and it's wrong as well, because it's really UEFA he needs to have a word with about the fact that they have Europa League games on a Thursday and they don't have any on a Tuesday. But he's doing that thing, isn't he? It's a game of inches. He's starting to learn the ways of Scottish football. It's a political thing. It's a game of inches, as Al Pacino says when he's playing a sports manager of our coach of an American franchise in Oliver Stone's Any Given Sunday, anything can happen, as it did last Sunday. And Al Pacino, it's a gridiron, an American football team, a fictional one, in that Oliver Stone film that he's in. But ironically, in Heat, 1995 LA crime saga directed by Michael Mann, it's the first time Al Pacino and De Niro acted together in a film. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I'll explain it to you later on in this pod. It's a film I think you should be aware of. I don't usually talk about this kind of stuff in what's after all football podcasts, but in that, his dress sense, the character he was playing, Vincent Hanna, the robbery homicide detective, he's wearing kind of slick suits and these ties, the hair's a bit slick back, and apparently his style in that, as that character, was based on Pat Riley, who was the famous coach of the LA Lakers, the basketball franchise, in the kind of late 80s up to the very early 90s. And Pat Riley is now, if that wasn't coincidence enough, he plays a football coach, and his character in another film is based on a basketball coach. Pat Riley is now the president of Miami Heat. This is quite, I find that quite amusing. And that's, I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for Ali Auld, aka Ali Wheels, absolute legend of Gersnet. He's always a great supporter of Gersnet, and now a great supporter of this wee pod of mine. And Ali sent me, it was just recently, last week it was the 29th birthday, I think it might actually have been Sunday, or was it Monday, the 29th anniversary of Heat being released in the United States. So there's a lot of stuff on the old Twitter and on the social media, and there was I think it's a 46 tweet thread of different little factoids about Heat, the background, different about the actors and what the story is based on, etc., which Ali sent to me. Absolutely brilliant. And the Pat Riley thing was in that. I didn't know that. So thanks, Ali. Absolutely fantastic. Much appreciated, mate. But yeah, I was going to do this little podcast, this little bonus pod, because I thought there's nothing happening this week. And usually what happens is I get to, even when I'm doing the Friday pods, there's a lot of reaction still to take care of. I didn't take care of the post-match reaction. A lot of stuff happens. You find out wee things, but lots of analysis has come out. And you need to kind of deal with that, and you end up still reviewing things that have happened in the fallout for previous Rangers games before you get a chance to preview the very Rangers game that that's the preview pod's all about, and it goes on for like an hour and a half or something like that. That's not going to happen this week, is it? Because it isn't even a midweek game. This isn't even going to be the Dundee preview. It's got to the stage where there's been so much fallout after what happened at Hampden and Sunday, and things that didn't happen at Hampden and Sunday, that I was setting up to do a wee casual, I'll have a wee chat about it. I saw the penalty incident during the game. When I was at the game, didn't get a clear view of it. I didn't really have a strong opinion on it when I was doing my post-match reaction pod on Sunday from outside Hampden. But then you get by, folk are texting you, you're hearing stuff, and then you see the highlights on telly when you can eventually stand to look at them. I had recorded the game as well, live on TNT, and watching it. That's a penalty. That's a penalty we didn't get. And there's also that creates its own reaction. Should we be persecuting referees? Do we want to become like Celtic and the way they've gone after referees in the past? It's a characteristic of our club. I don't want us to become really down on referees from an official point of view. It's something Celtic have done for years, and I just don't like it. So it'd be a bit hypocritical if I started saying my club should be doing the same thing, but no doubt I will have at some point. But anyway, the whole point, there's a whole lot of reaction that's going to be taken. This was supposed to be a Dundee preview, a wee early Dundee preview as well, and it's not. It turned. I was in the middle of just preparing this, thinking, what can I talk about? And then I'm sitting and I get the tweets and all that, and I see stuff coming up saying Wally Collum is going to be on at noon talking about this game. I thought, this VAR review thing that the SFA do every month, I think that's quite good. I never actually watch it because I trust them. To be honest, I did kind of trust referees in Scotland anyway, so I never really watch it. And that's why I don't really go OTT in criticism of referees, because I have no right to, and I don't really understand the protocols and how VAR works, and I don't even understand, and I mean that in the clearest possible sense. I am genuinely ignorant of. I don't know the laws of the game. I know the basics, but even then, the interpretation, the protocols that VAR have brought about leaves me even more poorly placed to be damning of referees who we need to run our game. We experienced what it was like almost not to have a club in 2012. Well, if we don't have referees, we have nobody. Our club would just be a club. It wouldn't be playing football. There needs to be somebody that run the game. So what I'm trying to say is, suddenly, by the time I watched this thing, this VAR thing, I saw the text today just saying, oh, he's just taking full responsibility. He said they made a complete wreck. There's no way they're going to show us. They're not going to play the audio. They're not going to. They did play the audio. I mean, did they even look at it? Did the VAR official? Did they even look at the incident? They did. They actually looked at it. Just they looked at it too quickly. They looked at it wrong. It'll be that Frank Connor. He's got a kind of Irish Catholic-y sounding name. It'll definitely be that Frank Connor. He's Frank Connor was looking at it. That was the problem. Frank Connor was trying to do. They've got a million things to do. The referees, he's trying to not doing the yellow cards, and Alan Muir is saying to him, that's not a penalty, you know what I mean? You agree? I whatever. I've just got to get these penalties. I've got to get all the bookings written down, because if Liam Scales gets booked again later in the game, and John Beaton doesn't have a note of it, and we can't tell him he should be getting sent off, that'd be an even bigger controversy. How could you possibly miss that? They've got a lot to do, the boys, and you find that out when you watch these wee programmes. But what was so stunning, what was absolutely unbelievable, was the level of transparency from Willie Collum, a religious education teacher, at a Catholic school. It's a Catholic school, so we know what his agenda is. No, we don't. The referees, I don't care who they supported as a kid, who they supported in their adult life. I don't care if their whole family has got season tickets for Parkhead and what have you. Have you been to a football match? Have you heard the abuse that referees get, that officials get, just casually? Have you been to a non-league game? You've been to the juniors and what have you, or West of Scotland or whatever it is now. If you got, it's unreal. They're like social punch bags, officials. They just take dogs abuse in a kind of, it's a spewed out, almost instinctive way from fans. It's so unqualified. 90% of the abuse that they take during the game, from all the players on the park, all the management and the coaches and the substitutes on the sidelines, and all the fans up and down, every stadium, every wee ground in non-league, every ground in the four divisions of league football in Scotland. It's horrendous, the abuse they take. It would make them close ranks something fierce. As I've always known, referees just want to be good referees. I don't care what club they supported. You could despise that club, utterly despise that club by the time you finished refereeing them. In one game, never mind a whole life of refereeing and having their fans get in touch with you on social media and calling you out all over the place. I remember once, this is such a diluted, such a watered down kind of variation of the same thing. It's the only example I've got from my personal life. Whereas I was, in those years, I was doing my higher woodwork or whatever, my further education stuff. You'd have wee summers when you were doing, nothing, you had no money coming in. So I'd try to get part-time jobs, temporary jobs during the summer. And I joined an agency one time and just get some admin work somewhere, whatever. And I get the chance to work at Ibrox. The Rangers were looking for somebody to work in the ticket office. I mean, they're trying to get me in the ticket office. Now you know why the problems with the Rangers ticket office. That's because they're trying to employ folk like me. They're just asking for trouble. But I remember thinking, all right, and I was saying you could get, at this point in time, I couldn't go and watch Rangers because I was in full-time education, so I didn't have the money. And it was like, you will get to see, most of the second half of a game, you'll get to watch that for free. And I thought, well, that's better than nothing, isn't it? And also, you have to wear the club shirt and tie and all that. So I thought, I'm actually employed by Rangers. That'd be pretty cool. But it took me about 2 minutes to realise, no, I'll have a boss who's a pain in the arse. I'll get abuse off fans or whatever if I'm front-facing, customer-facing, because I'll not have their tickets or whatever. I'll end up hating Rangers. Real world stuff. Just let's live in the real world here. I just want Rangers to be this thing in my life that they've always been, which I can just go and idolise blindly. Just love yous. I love yous. And it needs to be something, as much as they annoy me at times, I want it to be something that's just there for an adoration machine for me, an adoration bucket, if you like. And the idea that I would work there, because I'd already worked at Glasgow Uni, secrets out, I did do a wee, English lit degree, English degree at Glasgow Uni, believe it or not, from the way I talk in these podcasts. And I loved it, and the quads and all that. I went as a mature student, you probably worked that out as well. I went later life and just going in, into these the beautiful quads and all that, the kind of Gilbert Scott building that, and going through the doors into the English lit department. This office, it was an office job. What was it? Student registration. That's what it was. And the door was right next to the one I used to go into to get my English lit lectures. And I thought that'd be great. I could just go and relive the. No, you couldn't. It just ruined it. I was going to this pain in the arse 9 to 5 job, which was just a total nightmare. And it meant I was ruining the memories of going out to the quads and all that and going for my lectures and stuff like that. And it was, so that's, I think if that's the comparison that I've got for referees and what will happen to any allegiance they might have had for another club as they were growing up, or even during the early stages of their refereeing career. It's part of the whole confirmation bias thing of people who want to be miserable and see conspiracies where there aren't, and ignore the important, out there conspiracies, the ones where, banks and power companies and all that are just taking all our money off us and that kind of stuff. That we don't want to know about that. We don't want to know about that. But a referee, he must have supported a football team. I should hope so, because then he would understand football a bit. But that means he's biased towards that team. What if it's Rangers he supports? That's okay then. I don't agree with that kind of stuff. So it was great. I think you could hear today when you heard that footage that the referees, even the VAR referees, are under serious pressure. They're it's into extra time, that game. That game is into extra time. How many games will the referee that go into extra time? Not a lot. So they're sitting, maybe they should have a wee extra cup of tea or something like that. Maybe somebody should come in, they should have subs that can step in. If the game goes to extra time, fresh pairs of eyes, literally, looking at that footage. But I think the speed with which everybody's talking, with which a million different things have to be checked at the same time, you get a wee understanding. It's inexcusable the mistake they made, but they're being punished here because they're being held up. These boys, Alan Muir, Frank Connor, everybody knows who it is, and their boss here is publicly pillaring them, and the dent to their pride is a public humiliation, public accountability. And we know that they're not refereeing any games this weekend. That is a start. Maybe it's also the end of their punishment, which the SFA, quite rightly, I think Willie Collum was explaining that, will not be going into the details of that, as a manager of a football team would not go into the details of punishment of a player, enough to know that they're acknowledging the mistake, acknowledging the fault, and it will be dealt with internally. I think that was a massive step forward today. I've actually written down, so I had to watch it 2 or 3 times. I could not believe what I was watching. It was just like days to moan about this incident, where we didn't. If you don't know, if you've been living in the moon, Rangers did not get a penalty against Celtic quite early into extra time, the first half of extra time. Václav Černý gets hauled down by Liam Scales because he's trying to get away from Liam Scales. Scales is inside the Celtic box. Václav Černý is standing on the line of the box. The foul starts just outside it, but it continues. The shot pulls continued inside the Celtic box. It should have been a penalty. And we were all pretty harsh about it. And it was one of those ones where you saw, it's like, when Willie Collum started being harsh about it, you're almost, if you're hardened, okay, you won't have thought it was enough. But a part of you's almost like, all right, well, that'll do. Okay, the boys made a mistake. No, just take it easy. He was not missing them in any way, shape or form, Alan Muir and Frank Connor, and I did, by the end of this, actually feel a bit sorry for them, albeit it denied us a League Cup. And that's the thing, we don't know that it did. That's an exaggeration straight away. We don't know that we would have scored the penalty that should have resulted from that incident. It was still really early into extra time in a game that had already become a goal fest, in which both teams were reacting to the other team scoring. So Celtic, there's no way of saying that Celtic would not have summoned up another goal to at least take it still to the penalties, if not another couple of goals. It would change the shape of the game as it happened, the penalty incident and that. So you don't know that we would have won the game. And I think the thing I always try and remember in times like these, when incidents like these happen, is there will be things all over the park that have happened in that game, not as blatant. This is just from the referee's point of view, never mind the mistakes that Rangers players made that could have led to us scoring other goals. but there will be other little incidents all over the park during that game which could have been interpreted either way. Not as controversial, not as clear cut as that one, but it does not mean to say that the referee not picking up on those incidents was the difference between Celtic scoring more goals against us, for example. When I'm at the game, as I say, I'm up the other end, the Rangers end, so when that incident happened, it's up at the Celtic end. You're not seeing the lines very clearly. I was shouting for a penalty because I knew it was damn near the box. And I was actually, we got a free kick, that's the main thing. It must have been quick. I was trusting beaten straight away, hoping VAR. I'm screaming, VAR, penalty, let's get a penalty. But it was just more in hope than expectation. It was only when I got home, as I say, and I started what I actually saw on television that I realised that is a penalty. But I don't like to go too hard on these things, because there comes a point where people are saying we don't want games re-refereed. I kind of do. That's what VAR is about, as far as I'm concerned. It is about re-refereeing games. It's about picking up mistakes that were made. So when that gets missed, there's really nowhere else to go. It is out of order. But what was he saying? It was, what's his name? Duncan. What's the fella called? Graham Duncan, Alistair Duncan, Gordon Duncan. I've written down these quotes here. The wee guy's on Sky as well. He's outside Ibrox tonight as well. They record this, the VAR, the monthly VAR review, and it's Willie Collum, it's Scottish head of refereeing. They're going over major incidents of the last month that are controversial or otherwise, and the first one they started with was the League Cup final on Sunday, and Wally said it's a holding incident. Czerny's foot is irrelevant. Straight away, it's like, they're actually, yeah, it was a mistake, but the reason you think it's a mistake, it's not the case. Czerny's foot being on the line shows us, as fans watching, that's the proof, the physical proof that it was on the line, that it was in, technically that means in the box by the laws of the game, it's a penalty. But he's saying that's actually irrelevant. It's the pulling, it's the holding, the fact that Scales has got a hold of Czerny's shirt and he pulls his shirt into the box. You can see his shirt extending into the Celtic box. It should have been a penalty. The holding goes on to the line and possibly over the line. They failed to come to the right conclusion. This is Alan Muir, the VAR, the video assistant referee, and Frank Connor, the AVAR, the assistant video assistant referee, which is this should have been a factual overturn. No need for the referee to go to the monitor for a factual overturn, for a penalty kick to be awarded. So it wasn't even a case of John Beaton, the on-field referee, didn't have to go over to look at the screen. Why is he not going to the screen? We were saying, Monday, Tuesday. Why is he not going to the screen to at least have a look at that? He's not been asked to go to the screen. They've not seen it. They've not even looked at it. That's blatant. Well, they did look at it, but they just looked at it completely wrong. They looked at it too quickly. And Wally Collum, ultimately, when you look at the pictures, this is not a difficult decision from the VAR team. They are not forensic enough in the analysis. They move far too quickly. I think it means they move on the video far too quickly and just move the game on. You hear John Beaton said, is that okay? Is everyone okay in the VAR room? He's happy with that, guys. With the free kick he'd given just inside the box. So aye, on you go, John. I think, says Wally, they're thrown because the majority of the Rangers players' body is outside the penalty area. That's Czerny. But that's irrelevant because it's the holding that they should be judging. And they should be making sure they get a clear image to show them that continues into the penalty area, the holding. Basically, Wally Collum then does a kind of Connor Goldson after another League Cup match we lost at Hampden to Hibs, 2021-2022 League Cup semi-final. We lost that to Hibs, and Connor Goldson came out and just laid into Rangers team our performance, and he was accepting no excuses. And it was so bad, it was so honest, that people took him the wrong way. Rangers fans took him the wrong way and ended up saying, "Oh, why is he saying?" He was getting his tenses mixed up, so they were implying that he had given up during the game. But what he was saying was, "It doesn't matter me now coming out and saying that we come back at Hibs in the second half. That's not good enough. That's not enough of an excuse or whatever." So Wally Collum basically does the same here and just slaughters his own team. And I thought it was really interesting. He was saying, by firstly acknowledging, because he's getting asked by Duncan, transparency. We want transparency, there's no problem there. Obviously, you've been completely transparent about the refereeing team, the VAR team having got this wrong. And then he kind of waffles a lot like I'm doing just now, but he asks Wally Collum about the accountability. Now, how do we get to a point where we feel there's been accountability? He's basically saying, how are you going to punish the guys for this? And he's saying that he's going to keep the punishment private, but he says, by firstly acknowledging that it's a really, really poor decision, it's an unacceptable decision. Everybody in refereeing knows that. Everybody in refereeing. So he's basically saying to Alan Muir and Frank Connor, you're an embarrassment to refereeing. I felt that was a bit OTT, to be quite honest. It's unacceptable. We'll do our very, very best through our coaching and our analysis to make sure this never happens again. But it's a mistake. But it's a bad mistake. He does a double but there. But it's a mistake. But it's a bad mistake. I don't know if you've seen Dana Carvey doing his impersonations of Joe Biden recently on Saturday Night Live, where he's that thing. And by the way, and another thing, it was like that. It was just, but it's a mistake. But it's a bad mistake. A double but. He's not letting it go at all, Wally. There's accountability, and there has been consistency since I've taken that post. I think Wally's kind of stating his intention to be the guy who revolutionises the relationship between the clubs and the match officials, and also who revolutionises the way these games are refereed. The standard of Scottish refereeing is so bad that it's quarter of a century. I think quarter of a century since we've had an official refereeing a European club final. We didn't have that many before 1999. It was Jim McCloskey refereed, I think, the 1994 UEFA Cup final second leg. San Siro, Inter against Casino Salzburg, the old RB Salzburg. Ian Foote, he refereed the 1979 UEFA Cup final first leg, 90-odd thousand or 89,000 watching Red Star Belgrade beating Borussia Mönchengladbach. Or was it one each? I think it was one each, because Mönchengladbach won that. They won UEFA Cup that season. Bobby Davidson, he refereed the 1975 Cup Winners' Cup final between Dinamo Kiev and Ferencváros in Switzerland. The 86 UEFA Cup final second leg, which was Cologne against Real Madrid, but it was played in Berlin. That was Bob Valentine. He got that one. And of course, Jack Mowat famously got the 1960 European Cup final in front of 127,621 people at Hampden Park on the 18th of May 1960. Real Madrid 7, Eintracht Frankfurt 3. And that was the days when, unless one of a local team was involved, it would be a local referee who got the European Cup final. So it wasn't really on merit, that one, but no, famous anyway. It's stuff like this will not help Scottish refereeing. Neither does our own attitude to Scottish football, I think I've said this before, in Scotland we have a thing where we love to consume the game, but in a really negative way. A friend, I told you this before, a friend who visited from Germany, and he was saying how, well, he was working here for years, sorry, but he was from Germany, and he was saying the thing that he'd realised, because I was always talking about how much I loved the German national team and how great they were and that, and he was saying, yeah, it's like the beer in this country. This is just before we started getting all the craft ales and that coming in. But he was saying, this is Scotland, whiskey. He's gave the world whiskey. You've got the most glorious spirits on the planet. But he's all drinking pints, and the pints are crap. Now, he comes from Germany, which at that point in time was well ahead of us when it comes to the old beer, and Germany being the beer, the lager capital of lager's a German word. Lager capital of the world. But he was saying, you're drinking Coors and Tennent's, and it's almost like you don't care about the quality, you just want the quantity, and I think it's the same with the football. Obsessed with football in this country, but it's that kind of spewy Tennent's, Coors sort of way. We need to try and do things better. We need to give instead of the stuff that's said about VAR. It's so unqualified, so poorly qualified. Some of the criticisms that are hurled at VAR, which are really just criticisms of referees, which are really just howling at the moon because your team didn't get what you wanted them to get, are just repeated by mainstream coverage because they want controversy, they want fans to be unhappy, they want players to be unhappy, they want everybody to be fighting because that's the way to boost your ratings. That's no helping the game at all. And I think with so much of people's thinking these days, not actually thinking, but kind of assertion without evidence, and then only picking up evidence that suits your assertion, kind of confirmation bias stuff. And it's, as I say, that's affecting politics. We've got the rise of populism and what have you, because people are just saying, well, Muslims have done this and Muslims have done that, and or if you're anti-Jewish or whatever, you'll just always pick up on something bad that's been done by the group of people that you want to demonise. As I'm always saying, well, I imagine what somebody black or Muslim or whatever must think of Fred and Rosemary West, Jimmy Savile, the Yorkshire Ripper. It's just bullshit, and it's the way the world's been run right now, because we have like Elon Musk, etc., just perpetuating this confirmation bias to people in a really damaging, horrible way, just purely to make money. Doesn't care if the whole world burns down. And that's why I've always had a real problem with Celtic. I was always going to, and I mean Celtic, not Celtic supporters necessarily, although they obviously will back that up, because we all stick up for our own clubs. I do it with Rangers as well. But I was going to initially title this pod Back to Work. Back to Work. It's a line from Heat, and I'll explain that. But I was going to title it Back to Work, and the subtitle was going to be The Mask Slips. The mask slips, because I remember last season, I think we just lost to Motherwell at Ibrox, when Motherwell beat us at Ibrox, and that was kind of the start of the end of our title challenge under Clement. Was it February, March? And we had a Celtic game coming up or something. We were playing Celtic the following week, I don't remember. But I just said something about these bastards. Right, we're going to get a chance to get in these, catch these bastards, beat these bastards. Just talking about Celtic, And it was just kind of mano, adult to adult. I'm a Rangers fan, I'm talking about Celtic, bastards. It was just, and I've got a lot of Celtic fans follow me on this podcast. I'm really grateful for that. A lot of them saying, "Oh, it's good that you're not into the whole bigotry stuff and that, Alec, and you're quite sensible and what have you." But there comes a point where it's like, I am a Rangers supporter. I'm Rangers daft, and I'm going to, it's going to get. I don't think it's too much of a coincidence. I've got a lot of Celtic fans being really nice to me in this pod at a time where Rangers aren't beating Celtic. We haven't beaten Celtic in a meaningful match since 2022, for 2.5 years, really. And I'm hoping to test just how genuinely you like me as Celtic supporters by Rangers utterly pounding Celtic once, anytime, sometime, and just have a big, fat-faced, baldy-old guy gloating like fuck about the fact we've beaten Celtic. And we'll see, because I think there's definitely a lot of people out there on both sides who don't want an olive branch extended. Their kind of worldview depends on the other side, be it Celtic, be it Rangers, the opposite side being toxic, being completely beyond the pale, not having any redeeming features. And I do have a few people, not only a minority, I get feedback from a few who are clearly upset by the fact that I like to have a laugh, I like to criticise my own team, I like to kind of, if Celtic do well or whatever, I'll mention that. I've got a bit of fairness, a bit of objectivity about me, and that actually upsets people who want all Rangers fans to be able to be perceived as knuckle-dragging bigots who somehow have managed to run the greatest conspiracy in the history of football, but are also idiots and bigots and just blah blah blah. And I see Rangers fans doing that with Celtic fans as well. So for me, it'd be hypocritical to do the same thing here. It's not how I feel anyway, but this could be one of the moments where it's the mask slips. The mask slip. I remember this fella got in touch with me after I'd said that. Just one wee swear. It was just calling Celtic bastards. The way I would say it in a dressing room if I was captain of a team that was about to let's get into these bastards. And it was, oh, bastards, the mask slips. It's like, for fuck's sake, mate, So this could be one of the moments where if you're determined to believe that I am, somebody who hates all Celtic fans, is a rampant bigot, hopefully I explained why that couldn't be the case, even if I wanted to be on last Friday's preview pod for the League Cup final. But this could be one of those moments. If you're determined to believe that, you could go to town on it. What I'm actually going to do here is explain to you how easy it is to let confirmation bias, characterise any particular body, be that Celtic, be that Rangers, be that the SFA, because the same Martin O'Neill's last act, the Celtic manager, was to eyeball and stare out the linesman who had given a penalty to Rangers late on at Tynecastle a few weeks ago. It's just like, it's not the incident, it's not the thing that's supposed to that's gone wrong or has gone against it. It's how much hysteria and publicity you can get behind that to characterise it. It seems to be a big thing with the MO of Peter Lawwell and Peter Lawwell's Celtic. How Celtic the club operate, not necessarily having a go at Celtic fans here. And I can't blame any Celtic fans for sticking by their club. That's just what we do. It is football after all, it's not real life. But I think straight away, the first thing I'm expecting to happen now, Rangers have issued a statement which is, we acknowledge the Scottish FA's determination to use this and other decision-making failures as opportunities to drive improvements in officiating standards. As a club, we will continue to engage with the Scottish FA in an attempt to improve officiating standards for the benefit of all clubs in Scotland. Now that's, if you want to, that's Rangers having a go at how bad it's been. But that's quite a decent way to end the statement. Obviously, showing that we're not going to take it any further. We're quite happy with the SFA admitting the mistake they made. But on Sky, for example, today, they ended it a few paragraphs earlier, and it was something to do with I've not got it right in front of me here, about the standards of Scottish football. It's going to be a real embarrassment. Where are we? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Welcome to transparency from the SFA. Yeah. Rangers say officiating failure in the League Cup final is hugely disappointing and damaging for the credibility of Scottish football more widely. Now that's where Sky ended their reporting on Rangers' statement, reacting to the extreme honesty, the coruscating honesty of Willie Collum on the VAR review, because people want it to be an upset. They want it to be and that's not. And I think Rangers are quite right. Apart from anything else, we can be said to have an advantage playing at Hampden. That's the only reason that we have scored 3 goals against Celtic in a venue other than Ibrox for the first time since 2010. We scored 3 against them at Parkhead, beat them 3-1. I mean, Kenny Miller was amongst the goal scorers that day. Because we came to an agreement. The football authorities, the SFA, let us use Hampden as a home venue this season. So we don't like to go in too hard on people who have, ostensibly helped us. Obviously, we know what happened in 2012. We're not going to forget that. We'll never forget that as long as we live, as Rangers supporters. The way we were treated by other clubs, and really it was the clubs that led it, telling the football authorities that, no, don't have them back in the top flight, don't have them back in the second flight. Just, yeah. It was that was pretty bad. After I'd stood on the death trap away ends at Tynecastle and Parkhead and all that, or all those decades, Easter Road, open to the elements, and what have you, supporting these clubs, giving them the, at times where they could barely muster, a sellout in their own stands in their own parts of the ground. We were going there and filling their away ends for decades, and so there's a lot of ill feeling towards the SFA amongst Rangers fans towards the other clubs, and that's not going to go away in my lifetime. But we need somebody to run the game, and I think if you get to the point if somebody is honest and open with you, if you then proceed to punish them for doing that, they will just go back to the way they used to be, which is standoffish. Oh, right, no, get away from me. They used to be on the part, no, Brian McGinley and all that. Did Brian McGinley get a European final? I don't know. Just get away from me. No, I'm not talking to you. Because if I try to explain things to you, you're just going to moan even more. You're a bunch of Neds. Away you go. So I think you need to react positively, or certainly tone back the criticism when you get a full and honest explanation of a mistake. But I expect Celtic not to like this. I expect the reaction from Peter Lawwell. It'll be Peter Lawwell just talking a wee aside at a charity event over the next couple of weeks or so. Or Brendan Rodgers just to make a wee joke in his presser about how there's no way they're going to get anything other than beat. They'll not be allowed to win this game at Ibrox in the 2nd of January, because you've basically got a public statement of the SFA saying they love Rangers. It's going to get changed. It's going to get spun to sound like that, because Celtic were against VAR before VAR even get introduced in Scotland. That's the thing, it's still quite a young thing in Scotland. Was it only been a couple of years, if that? We've had VAR and in Scotland, so they're still learning. I don't think you could be too hard on them. I personally am very happy with this explanation. I'll take that, and that's an end of it for me, but I don't think it'll be an end of it for Celtic, because it'll be something they could be seen to be using. They want, I think it's plain to see from their actions, since going back to, the first one I remember, I was talking about the Willie Collum thing, obviously. So the Hugh Dallas thing back in the 90s. And Hugh Dallas eventually gets sacked for sending a sectarian email about the Pope. It's a meme, a little photograph, as a wee joke about the Pope. It was about the Pope's visit to Scotland. All I know is it was sent to me at my work the exact same day it was sent to Hugh Dallas by a Celtic fan, by like the craziest, most fanatical Celtic fan you've ever met in your life. And of course, we were so opposite each other that we were the same. My Rangers stuff too, obviously we had to become best mates. And he's sending this to me and a few other, like a Motherwell supporter as well, that he sent it to in the same email group at our work, because he thought it was funny. But Celtic were determined to get Hugh Dallas, and get him they did. He was also his involvement in the Dougie McDonald incident up at Tannadice, where Celtic got the decision they wanted on the field, but there'd been a lie told. And that I think it's proved an article of faith with the Celtic supporters, so that had to be pursued to the nth degree. Hugh Dallas was accused of bullying the linesman or something to try and go along with the lie that Dougie MacDonald was telling on the park, just for a bit of peace and quiet to give Celtic the decision they wanted. But they won the game anyway, Celtic didn't they? They won the game up at Tannadice, but that wasn't enough. Root and branch, we got a referee's strike and all that as a result of foreign referees brought in, which is something I saw Rangers fans asking for this week, and I was kind of embarrassed by that. But there's a lot of, you feel kind of helpless when you see a poor decision like that, and you just think the world's against you. It's gone a bit wrong, but Celtic are pursuing this as a club, as a corporation. It's company policy. This isn't just fans howling to the moon. We had there's a few things Celtic have done which it's quite amazing. They're so bad that if you mention them, you become the evil one in the eyes of Celtic fans for even bringing these things up. So I'll skip over them. That's quite a skill that, considering the way in which we were demonised as having killed grannies, who couldn't get an ambulance to them in time after their heart attacks because we didn't pay our taxes, because we went to tax, as if the Celtic support the entire time I was growing up, Celtic fans again would come up to you and guys that you knew and boast to you. It was an open boast from Celtic supporters that the crowds at Parkhead were much bigger than their directors were reporting. They're skimming off a tap, they're no paying their tax. They're keeping the tax. But that was beating the man. That was doing them a bit. Suddenly Rangers, it was but we got the league, the break in the league was moved. The winter break, in Postecoglou's first season, Celtic were struggling, and it helped them with injuries, helped them get a few more signings in, and that really did change the momentum of us Rangers' ability to retain the league title in 2021-2022. Albeit we were also on our way to a European final. That's fine. We had ourselves going to a European final in 2007, 2008, of course, and I remember 2002, 2003, where Celtic played a semi-final against Boa Vista, and they had to go to Ibrox the following Sunday after the game on the Thursday, and Martin O'Neill declared that he thought this was extraordinary, that we were being made to play an Old Firm game at Ibrox after a European semi-final on Thursday night, and he didn't know how the Celtic fans would react if they lost that game at Ibrox. Basically, I'm there. If you want to get OTT about it, I've got family, a young family, like cousins and all that, in the crowd that day, and this is when Celtic would get 8,000 to get the whole Broomloan. He's basically encouraging a bit of a riot. If you want to be a bit emotional about it. But the point was that this would never happen. He says this would never happen if Rangers got to a European semi-final. So 5 years later, we did get to a European semi-final, and either side of it, we had to play at Parkhead. We had to play twice away from home in an Old Firm match. Either side, or in between the two legs, against Fiorentina. For us to get to the same final that Celtic had reached in 2000. So it did happen, and it happened much worse, happened doubly badly to us in a league title race that went down to the last day of the season, as it did in 2002, 2003. That's the kind of stuff that kind of gets in your tits over the years, and the continual haranguing of referees when we've seen what happened. Celtic got awarded the league title in 2020, and it's COVID. Oh, God, well, people were dying. How can you... that's fine. Let's just abandon. Liverpool were going for their first league title in 30 years. That same season, they were well on their way to winning it, and Jurgen Klopp issued a statement to Liverpool support saying, "Listen, we've waited so long. What's another couple of years? We can't accept this league title without complete." Juventus did the same in Italy, and they were going for 9, 10 in a row. Italian record, improving their own record of retained league titles, consecutive league titles, and they were like, "No, we can't take this title. It's COVID. Folk are dying. I know there's only a few months to go in the season, but you can't take a league title without completing the league card." And they were allowed to complete it. And Liverpool played behind closed doors to the end of that season. In this, with 2 Old Firm games still to go, albeit Rangers were 10 points behind Celtic, there's still 2 Old Firm games to go, and you see the way Celtic collapsed the following season. We just didn't play, and we didn't play. Was it 9 fixtures that Celtic didn't play? I think we had a game in hand as well. So it was 9 or 10 games that we didn't play. Celtic was 1 game less for the end of that season. It was, I just always think, had that been Rangers taking that league title and getting, we saw the incident with Dundee, how the emails stuck in their folder or whatever the hell it was Celtic were basically pressuring clubs to vote with them to stop, they just cut off the league titles, relegate Partick Thistle, relegate Hearts, and make sure they got the league title and display that thing at their training grounds. if that had been Rangers, if it had been the other way around, we would have been the most disgusting, disrespectful, stepping in the graves of the people who died of COVID, on the planet. And it happened the other way about. That was absolutely fine. And Rangers didn't sign a Catholic for 80 years. And we had the EBTs and all that kind of stuff. So it's so easy. You could just turn it all around, and we've been horrendous. We're evil. We're cheats. We're the worst club in the world. It's very, very easy, the confirmation bias thing. And that's why I think this today, as Rangers supporters, we should accept it. Just accept what the SFA are saying, accept what Willie Collum is saying. I don't think it was an apology, and that's probably a legal thing, because you would would be asking for compensation. The idea that there should be a replay or something, that's just never, no way, ever. That's just never going to happen, and it never should happen. There comes a point, as I say, where we have to accept that it is a sport. There does have to be sporting integrity, albeit some clubs shout about sporting integrity the same way that third world dictators always use the word democracy about the country that they're running into the ground. I've seen VAR decisions in the last couple of seasons that have cost us because they're too analytical, far too analytical. The referee's gone in there and the VAR team is, and they've found that, Lager Bielka, it's actually his stride is fine, and it's Dessers that interferes with his stride. So let's chop off that goal for Rangers that Roof eventually puts in the net. And I thought that's a misuse of VAR. I saw ones that were too focused on one certain action. That Alfredo Morelos at Parkhead, opening the scoring at Parkhead. And these two incidents I'm talking about are under Michael Beale. And what a difference it made to his reign. So, we've done us a favour there. I'm saying just now that we should change our minds. Anybody who's saying that we judge Philippe Clement on the fact that he has not won in a dozen Old Firm games now. He's not won his first dozen Old Firm games. Well, we can say that he could have won a couple of them if decisions had gone the right way. Let's just let him off it. But if you want to take that to the rest, that's two incidents that could have led to Rangers under Michael Beale winning 3 Old Firm games at least, instead of just the one that he did manage, and maybe Michael Beale would still be in charge. So it's not always a bad thing if VAR chops a goal off for us. But also with that Scottish Cup final incident under Clement, the last Scottish Cup final, Old Firm Scottish Cup final, where VAR is looking at it as too subjective in that occasion. Finding Raskin pushing the Celtic goalkeeper while Raskin's also getting held at the same time. But let's just look at that one bit and not the foul on him and say they cancel each other out and therefore it's a goal to Rangers. That kind of thing. This time it was neither. This was neither. This was just straightforwardly a penalty to Rangers that was missed. And I think we're also aware of the campaign that was mounted about the penalty on all sorts of social media platforms, but also by, like, Chris Sutton just having a joke on Sky every single week. And it was mentioned by the Celtic, what is he, Peter Law, was he chairman, executive chairman? I don't know what the hell he is. But that was mentioned by him so many times, it's unbelievable. Just a joke though. And then suddenly Rangers are getting no penalties this season domestically. We're getting nothing in the league. It's quite incredible. It's a thing of judging things by numbers. If Rangers are getting so many penalties across a couple of seasons, Tav scoring so many penalties, it must be cheating. Whereas 4 consecutive trebles, every single domestic trophy in Scotland for 4 consecutive seasons, that's fine. There's no way that can be questioned, and I don't question it. I was there for half of them being won. I saw Celtic beating us in these games. It was fair and square. They were the better team, except perhaps for that League Cup final 5 years ago, where the same thing happened without VAR. They won it unfairly, and also the same has happened that day. We had Alfredo Morelos missing a penalty. And we're playing against 10 men, so there's blame for Rangers in that game as well. And I think I made a big mistake of, after the Spurs game on Thursday night, saying that Igaman was our new Morelos, because he was that unplayable, and peak Morelos, when he was scoring all those goals in the Europa League, he was totally unplayable, and I've always wanted to have that back. We need to get that kind of peak Morelos who can totally lead the line. And Igaman was giving Carter Vickers a hard time the other day, but he's no scored against. He's been the guy who's been clean through, and he needs to play the ball left. and instead he plays it right to Czerny, which is a harder option. It's almost like there's a mistake from him. I know he sets up our first goal in the game and our second first two goals are assists from Igaman on Sunday there, but he's also got mistakes that have led to us not extending our lead. So then we had big Balogun going through on goal towards the end of the first half, and injury time in the first half. He should have made a better decision there. We could have been 3-0 up after like the 52nd minute of that game on Sunday. So there's enough for us to blame ourselves. It's frighteningly similar to that game in 2019-20, that League Cup final that we lost to Neil Lennon's Celtic under Gerrard, when the night was darkest just before the dawn the following season. We won the New Year game at Parkhead. Season get cut short because of COVID, and the following season we just destroyed everything in our sight in the league, including Celtic regularly. So let's not fret too much about it. But I remember an incident years ago at White Hart Lane it was, and it was Tottenham against Chelsea. I think it would have been Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was going in on goals. It was going in on goal for Spurs, and on the Spurs goal at White Hart Lane, and next thing he just goes up in the air. It looks like he gets brought down, and he's claiming for a penalty. And whoever the Spurs defender was like, I never touched you. I mean, he's right behind him, but I never touched you. I never touched. No, me, you're a cheating, but you're claiming I'm not a cheating. No, that usual rammy that goes on. Who is the actual genuine innocent party here? And it was a replay, total slow. And this is probably the moment they decided we need to use VAR because cameras can pick up things that the naked eye can't see. What had actually happened was Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank's lace on his front boot as he was running was a bit loose. He had a big loop on his lace, and it had come back as both of his feet left the ground as he was trying to kind of skip into the box. The loop of the lace had caught the stud on the sole of his other foot, and so he would have felt a trip. He's basically fallen over his own laces, but the way they've caught in the stud, he's genuine. It would have felt for all the world like somebody's taken the legs from him. It looked like it as well, but you can see the Spurs player knows for a fact he hasn't touched him, and he's right. And at points like that, you can't judge everything. You don't know instinctively. You don't know straight away everything that's happened on the pitch. You might call something as a supporter that definitely can only go one way. That can only be one thing. There's always another possible explanation. That's not what happened this time. But I also remember being in the stands on the Copeland Road stand, and we're shooting into the Copeland for Rangers against PSV Eindhoven under Dick Advocaat. We were under Dick Advocaat because Dick managed PSV as well. Would that be 99-2000, the Champions League group stage? And at this point in time, Rangers had only ever won a Champions League match by one goal. A group match. We'd never won a group match by more than one goal, and we're 2-0 up, just approaching half-time against PSV Eindhoven and playing brilliantly. And I'm up the back of I'm in the group with Bayern and Valencia. It's a tough group, and I'm up the back of the Copeland. Stone cold sober. And I'm thinking, because I'm into my stats and all that, if we can actually win a game by more than a single goal, this would be brilliant. And next thing, it's a penalty to PSV. And the foul happens right in front of me. It's Craig Moore on Ruud van Nistelrooy. And I'm like, as far as I was concerned, there was just no way it was a penalty. And I went mental, absolutely mental. And I continued it. Van Nistelrooy puts away the penalty, and I continued to go mental about it all through half time, to the point where people were trying to kind of walk away from me. I was slavering and all that, and it was like, this is a UEFA conspiracy. They don't want to see clubs for the small countries. No, and I've been proved right with that. They don't want to see countries with a small demographic. They don't have the advertising potential. They have a small population. They don't want to see them progressing in this new competition of theirs, which we helped invent. It's a conspiracy. He's given a penalty. I will get back home that night. We won the game 4-1, as you'll remember, and we were absolutely fantastic. So there was no this thing about stopping us winning by more than a goal was bullshit. And I got home that night and watched the highlights, and it was like 2 penalties. It was such a blatant penalty. It was unreal. And the referee who gave it was a guy called Pierluigi Collina, who knew a bit about referee, being that he's widely judged as being the best referee of all time. So the bias thing, the seeing things through, specs tinted with whichever colour of shirt the club that you watch, that always has to be factored in as well. I learnt these lessons, just at the kind of turn of the century, that you don't, as a supporter, you're just so unbelievably biased. You should never really go full on a refereeing conspiracy until you know all the facts. And that was a revelation to me today. It was actually quite interesting to know about the fact that the referee's got to, the assistant referee, the VAR assistant, sorry, Frank Connor in this case, has got to note down all the cards, note down the cards that have been administered on field, red cards and yellow cards, and the bit about the closed question. That was Willie Collum offered that up free of charge, you know, despite the fact that I don't think anybody could have known this was part of the problem. And he's given us another reason for these two officials to be criticised. He said it's Alan Muir. Frank Muir used to be on Call My Bluff. Alan Muir has said basically, aye, that's outside the box, isn't it? Well, that's outside the box, do you agree? Whereas he should be saying, do you think that was inside or outside the box? Have a look. It shouldn't be. He's just basically saying, going to confirm what I think, as opposed to, what do you think, to his assistant. And because his assistant's got other stuff to do at that time, I mean, the game is helter-skelter. It's a Rangers Celtic, the two kind of best teams in the country, you know, sorry Aberdeen, and they're going to end. It's 3 each already. It's frantic stuff. There's a lot happening, a lot of stuff for them to look at. So I'm not excusing it. It's their only job. It's what they've got to do. They've got to do it right. But it's really interesting to see how much can go wrong in the really easy ways in which it can go wrong. And I think this has been it's been quite a day. It's been quite a day. Scotland's football obsession, as I say, we've got to turn it into a positive. I mean, like, we've got Rangers and Celtic, for example. We've got we've got 5 European finals. I think Celtic have got 3. So that's 8 European final appearances between them. 2 European trophies, which is exactly the same as France. The whole of France, with all its money, with inventing the World Cup, the Euros, you know, half the European club trophies, Ballons d'Or, they've got so many Ballons d'Or. You know, Ballons d'Or is a French term. They invented the European Footballer of the Year, France Football, L'Equipe, and all that. The magazine France Football comes from L'Equipe. It's such a densely populated country. The infrastructure, football infrastructure is amazing. They're winning World Cups, winning European Championships at international level, and yet Celtic have won the European Cup, Rangers have won the Cup Winners' Cup, they've got Marseille winning the Champions League, and PSG winning the Cup Winners' Cup. That's it. You know, and for them in terms of European, and Marseille weren't even allowed to defend the trophy, as we weren't allowed to defend the Cup Winners' Cup. So it really is eeksy-peeksy between us and France, but a fantastic small-mindedness, parochialism gives you these clubs, gives you, you know, great football rivalries. You know, basically the whole of European club competition is just an extension of the Real Madrid-Barcelona domestic rivalry. They just want more attention for it, they want more money for it. But the Old Firm, despite all the kind of horrible stuff that goes on, the horrible reasons for it, the way it's come about, that Old Firm rivalry, it's created 2 massive clubs who overachieve for a country of 5 million people on a European stage. So we should just let's try and do that with the rest of the game internationally, in terms of a refereeing, etc. And I think this is quite a big step forward today. So that's me. That's nearly an hour long pod, and I've not even started talking about stuff I was going to talk about originally. As I said, I was going to call this. I'll probably end up making this pod. I'll give it a name when I post it eventually. Obviously, I don't decide the name until after I've recorded, so I'll maybe call it, you know, Column Conspiracy Confirmation or something like that, or SFA Con, something that will just get a lot of views, a total clickbait title. But the real titles were supposed to be Back to Work, and the subtitle, the mask slips. I hope you don't think the mask has completely slipped. I hope you can just see that anyway. This is your FATEC midweek bonus pod, coming to you in association with Gladstone Brooks. If you or anybody you know has been a subscriber to the Rangers Run Scottish Football Conspiracy Theory anytime between 1888 and Sunday, contact one of our advisors today. You could be due thousands of pounds in compensation. Of course, our calls will be monitored. We will have a couple of guys monitoring our calls, recording what's going on there for any mistakes in the interaction between our, you know, it'll be Frank and Alan probably. I'll be monitoring the calls. My name's Alec Anderson. When you left, I lost a part of me. It's still so hard to believe. Come back, SFA, please, 'cause we belong together. Who else am I going to lean on when times get tough? Who's going to talk to me on the phone till the sun comes up? Who's going to take your place? There ain't nobody better. Oh, League Cup, baby, we belong together. Yeah, it's back to work as a scene from Heat, the movie Heat. If you've got it on Prime, it's on Prime Video just now. If you've got Amazon Prime, it's on Amazon Prime, should I say. 1 hour and 8 minutes, just over 1 hour and 8 minutes. A few seconds into that, you will get the precious metals depository scene where Neil Macaulay and his criminal crew, Neil Macaulay played by Robert De Niro, are trying to break into the precious metals depository to steal some bullion. They steal some gold bullion or whatever it is they're trying to steal, but they don't realise they've been hacked into by Detective Vincent Hanna and his crew of the Robbery Homicide Division, the LAPD, the police department. They are about to they're hacking into them. They're watching them as they do this, and they end up. It's based on a real life incident. You know, if you know about Heat. Based on real life incident, Chuck Adamson, who became an advisor to Michael Mann, the director of Heat, and helped him, writing episodes of Miami Vice and all that kind of thing. He was a real life cop. He hunted down the real life Neil Macaulay. It was in Chicago that it all happened. I've got a video on this podcast a bit further down, which is, it's got Michael Mann Mania or Michael Mania, something like that, some kind of crappy title. But it's all about my obsession with Michael Mann movies to the point where I went to Chicago and I was on the street. I didn't actually quite get down there. I didn't get to the very point. I explained that in the video. It was a grocery store, actually a chain of groceries, nationwide chain of groceries. In the 60s, it was 1964 that Neil Macaulay got killed, 30 years before the actual movie was made about it. And that's where they got them. And so it wasn't a bank job as it is in, as the ghost of Neil Macaulay having a go at me there. As it is in the film Heat, it was actually a grocery store that they got them outside that, and but he actually killed him outside it. He doesn't kill him outside the bank in the film. He killed him outside the grocery store, Chuck Adamson. But before that, they tried to rob Neil's crew, the real life Neil Macaulay's crew, had tried to raid a department store. They're going to break into a department store, and this is Chuck Adamson had hacked into them. Chuck Adamson met Neil Macaulay, did the whole thing where he took him for a coffee, and it's the scene that's in Heat. The famous scene between De Niro and Pacino. It was Chuck Adamson meeting Neil Macaulay and saying to him, "No, go and rob somebody else. Go and do your job somewhere." He said, "No, I like Chicago." And they broke in. They hacked into his crew, and they knew they were going to try and break into this department store and steal stuff. And they were staking it out. The police were staking it out. They were hiding in the department store, and Neil's crew came in, and one of the police who'd been there too long, they'd been there all night waiting for them. He was busting for a pee, and he had to go and, Chuck Adamson, you're supposed to just pee yourself. In a stakeout like that, you just pee yourself. You pee where you are. But he got up and went to the toilet, kind of thing, basically, and made a noise. Neil's heard it. He's like, "Nah, let's get out of here." And because he hadn't actually stolen anything, because he hadn't taken anything, it's like, "Nah, you just get them for breaking an entry. They'll only do 6 months and that'll be it. You need to wait until they have actually stolen something before it's worth pitting these organised criminals away for life. Before you're able to do that." So that's why you get this scene, the version of that in Heat. It's not a department store, it's a precious metals depository. And it starts with it's a beautiful overhead shot as they're driving up the streets in LA, so it's uplit with palm trees, all uplit because Michael Mann uplights everything. And it's an aerial shot. And it always reminds me, ironically, of the Warner Brothers ident, because Warner Brothers are the distributor for Heat. The bit where they go over the lots, the old recording studios in the Warner Brothers lot, and it's a kind of wavy, sepia-tinted gauze kind of filter goes across the top of it, and as time goes by, the music just underneath it, as time goes by. Well, every time I see that, it reminds me of this scene as a camera comes down. It must be a helicopter or something coming down, and it follows Neil's crew in their truck as they're pulling up outside the investment grade metals. That's what it's called, the precious metals depository. Investment grade metals, stress fractures and titanium. Stress fractures. That's the book. What kind of book you're reading when Edie meets him in the cafe? What you're reading? A book about metals, stress fractures and titanium. No, he's the stress, the fractures. He needs love. He needs to let in the softness of life, the beauty of life, but he's trying to be hard because he spent his life behind bars or wearing these gunmetal suits. They're dealing with metals. They're always, it's the texture, the steely blues that the film was shot in. There's that hard edge to everything. In heat, because these guys have been behind bars and now they're trying to break through metals, now they're trying to steal metals. Steel, STEAL, as well as steel, STEEL. And they're going into this precious metal depository, but across the way there's a kind of, because it's like basically a industrial estate, across the road behind this wire mesh fence, there's a kind of Eddie Stauber type depot where there's lots of trucks, with the trailers of trucks, the cars aren't there, the cabs aren't there, but there's all these trailers of trucks that are sitting to wait and go, distribute, not U-Haul or something like that, some sort of trucks. So they go in there, and in one of those trailers is Vincent Hanna, played by Al Pacino, watching what's going to happen. Neil's crew, knowing that Neil's crew are going to this place, have worked out where it is they're going to actually rob next. They've seen them checking it out, scoping it out, doing their recce's. So they're there waiting for them, and they need them to go in there and steal stuff, and then they'll get them. So they've got this tactical unit. They've got on board all these, SWAT team or whatever, and they're hiding in bins and stuff like that, or in the area. But Vincent Hanna, as played by Al Pacino, he's in charge. And the whole meta thing going on here is this is the first time that De Niro, they haven't met yet, their characters haven't met yet in the film. They've only just identified each other, really. And it's the first time that they're going to come together on screen. They appeared together in The Godfather, 1974, which is 21 years before Heat comes out. And they're on screen. They're very briefly on screen together, but not in the same. They're not in the same stage, not the same sound stage. They're not inter dialogue, because in Godfather 2, De Niro is playing the young Vito Corleone, and in Godfather 2, Vito Corleone is dead. He's died. He dies at the end of the first Godfather film. So in Godfather 2, De Niro's playing the young Vito Corleone, but a prolepsis going on. It keeps going back to the present day, which is Al Pacino playing is Michael Corleone. And there's little bits where they just switch, where they're kind of switching it from the past to the present. And I think there's a couple of bits where they're on the screen, they kind of merge into each other at the same time, but they're not acting opposite each other. So it's that's quite interesting. It's like 22 and a half years since Rangers scored 3 goals past Celtic at Hampden, and that was the 2002 Scottish Cup final. I think that's quite interesting as well. I've got 1938. What have you got for the last time Rangers scored 3 goals at Hampden and get beat? The last time Rangers scored 3 goals and get beat in a game, lost a game, as far as I'm concerned, strictly speaking, it's a draw on Sunday when it comes to 90 minutes and game time. But I've got Spartak Moscow in the group stage of the Europa League. We went over there, and no VAR, and that we got a goal chopped off wrongly in that game. It should have been 4 each, that match over there in Moscow. But that's the last one I can remember Rangers scoring 3 and getting beat. But at Hampden, Rangers scoring 3 goals at Hampden and losing. There's probably been one, like 2 years ago or something like that. I've completely forgotten about. But the only one I can think of is 86 years ago, 1938 Scottish Cup semi-final, Kilmarnock. They beat us 4-3. Alec Venter's got a couple, and I think Willie Thornton get the other one. I remember doing the post-match reaction for that on the gramophone, and it was brutal. But very rarely that Rangers get. But I think it's October at Parkhead is the last time we scored 3 goals against Celtic anywhere other than Ibrox. The 2002 Scottish Cup final, last time we scored 3 against them at Hampden. But now we've scored 3 against them. We lost 3 to them at Parkhead this season, but the last 2 times the last time we played them at Hampden and Ibrox, we've scored 3 against them. So it's quite. We're getting back to the whole thing, but we've got to go back to work. I thought I was going to have to say this. I mentioned this in Friday night's preview podcast. I don't want to be saying back to work at the end of my post-match reaction on Sunday, and I didn't say it then because I couldn't face it, but I'm saying it now. I'm explaining it in far too much detail. You get the point where De Niro they get in there, and it's the mutual respect. And Rangers and Celtic don't have a lot of mutual respect. But our manager talking about Oliver Kuhn. Is it Oliver Kuhn? Oliver, the guy's name. The guy Kuhn that was scored against us on Sunday and did really well against us. He's a big threat for Celtic down their right hand side. I think the manager was talking about how he took him a while to settle in, but he's really good for them. And he's talking about how they've got a much bigger budget than us as well, and they have to be respected. So a bit of mutual, well, certainly a bit of respect from our side towards Celtic from our manager. But you have Vincent Hanna as played by Pacino, and this is obviously the respect he has for De Niro as an actor, and De Niro back to him as well, the two leading actors of their day. So they'll be up for different roles, and one will get one will get the other, but they both admire each other, and that's reflected in the characters in this film, even though they're opposite sides of the law. There's a bit of respect there, and they've never met, but there comes a point where De Niro goes into the shadows, because he's got Al, he's got Val Kilmer, not Al but Val, playing Chris Hairless, and Michael Chirito, and he's got a whole crew there, and they break into the place, and Pacino's character Vincent Hanna is sitting there watching them. They're in this truck, and they've got these screens set up, not like VAR. They've got multiple screens set up to watch them. The camera's trained on the depository, and he's saying, "Look, there you go." It's Michael Chirito goes straight up the telegraph pole outside, and he taps into the alarm system. Chris has already got the bolt in the lock, and he's just ready to turn that bolt, and just gives him, Chirito just gives him a nod. That's it. I've hacked in, the alarm's off. Away it goes. He's like, there you go, technique right there. Open sesame. That's it. The door's open, and this is, Vincent Hanna's admiring. He's admiring this crew, how good they are at their job, how good they are at breaking into stuff, and then they go, and then De Niro, because he's the head man, he comes outside and lets them get on with drilling them through this safe or whatever, to get at the precious metals, and he comes out and he stands kind of in the shadows, and an infrared camera closes in on him, and you see it from behind Al Pacino's head, Vincent Hanna's head. You see him watching the screen, and you see De Niro's face, but De Niro's, it's in negative because it's infrared. He's in the shadows, but it's not even black and white. It's like steely blues. It's blue and white, a blue and white negative. He's the inverse of the Al Pacino character. He's the inverse of Vincent Hanna, a good guy and a bad guy, but their heads are right next to each other, and it's the same thing that happened in Godfather 2. They're not in the same. They're in the same shot, but it's a different screen. He's in a different place. He's in a different sound studio, if you like, because it looks like the Warner Brothers sound studios, and they haven't actually met yet. It's building up the tension. It's the slow burn. This is the love story. This is the Ross and Rachel of Heat. These are the guys who understand each other best. Heat's all about a lack of communication. People can't communicate with each other. It's the roads are describing the roads that they're travelling on. Vincent gets into it. He's got walkie-talkies and that. He gets into what channel I'm on with the walkie-talkie when he gets into a helicopter flying over the top. The helicopter lands in a building. There's a police car waiting for him so he can go down onto the motorway, and he chases. It's when he eventually meets De Niro, when they eventually have an actual interchange. It's not the coffee shop, it's the invitation to the coffee shop. Moby's version of a very famous Joy Division song is playing it, and he's on the 105. He's on the 105 heading towards the 110 interchange, or heading towards an interchange between these characters who understand. There's so much communication. All they're talking about is how you hack and how you get information. You just pull it out the air, says Kelso. This stuff's out. You just got to know how to grab it, all this information that's floating about in the airwaves and the internet and that. There's Kelso's house, the guy who fancies the job to them for the bank. It's get dishes and aerials and that up to, but it's at the middle of nowhere, but it's right on the motorway. Different communication systems. He's talking about being in a plane, De Niro flying over Fiji and all that kind of stuff. It's all the different forms of communication. The phones, a regular phone and a cellular, they're talking about communication methods all the time, but they can't talk about how they need love in their life. They can't talk to the women in their life. They can't talk to their loved ones. They can't. The best communicators in this film, the only people who truly understand each other, the only protagonists who truly understand each other in this film are De Niro and Pacino, Hanna and Neil McCauley and Hanna respectively. Sorry, and they're the opposite sides of the law. They're actually trying to kill each other. It's just a terrible life that the two of them lead, and that's the build-up. It's a slow burn, and he pulls him up in the motorway, Pacino, and he just got me. How you doing? What do you say I buy you a cup of coffee? Sure, says De Niro. Let's go, Stevie G. That's the meeting, but it's not at that point yet. They're not at that point yet. The precious metals depository, and then just at that, there's a boy. He's in the tactical team. He's in there. He's in the back, in the kind of operation centre on the back of this truck, and he's asking. He's got his boss who's outside in a bin with a machine gun somewhere. His heavy armour and that on. That's right. Is it time to go yet? Is it time to should we attack them yet? But and Al Pacino and Vincent Hanna's got no. Stay off the air. Keep things quiet. So he sits down. The guy. He's got a rifle. He's got a rifle on his back, and he sits down in this tin, big metal, trailer for a lorry, and it dunts against the back of it, and it makes a crashing noise, and De Niro he's just across the street. De Niro, he hears it. What the hell was that? Gets out of the place. That's it. He just goes straight in, tells Chris, Michael, we're out of here. That's it. There's something happening. There's a noise out there. Let's go. Just leave all the equipment, or the months of planning they put into this job, or the specialised equipment they're bought to break in. Doesn't matter. We're not going down for this. And then the tactical guys, he's on the phone, right? That's them. They're coming out to be attacking. Let's go. And he's like, no, you're not going. You can't go. Vincent Hannison, you can't go because they haven't got anything in their hands. They haven't taken anything. They haven't stolen anything. You're only getting to get them in some chicken shit misdemeanour that gets beaten, that they'll just serve 6 months. We'll get done for breaking an entry at most. If we take them now, so he's like, I've got all these guys here with these guns and all that. Says the tactical guy, that the kind of gung ho. And the problem is, he doesn't realise that Vincent Hanna and all his guys have all been in the Marines. They're proper hard. This is just a kind of a wind down job for them being in the post. They're no respect for the SWAT guys. They don't think they're hard. They don't think they're that impressive. They think they're just hard heads, kind of numb nuts. And he's saying to them, no, I've got tactical rank here. You walk away and you will let them. They will walk away and you will let them. And he's like, fuck, and he throws down his walkie-talkie. It's all because that guy made a noise. One of the tactical guys, one of the SWAT idiots, made a noise that alerted Robert De Niro, Vincent Hanna. So he comes out the truck. Once Neil and his crew piss off, they open the back of the truck and they step out into, and it's now daylight. It's been dark the whole time and it's now daylight. And Pacino just stands there and he goes, back to work. And he takes his walkie-talkie and he throws it to somebody to catch. Back to work. That's what he says. And it was a bad result. It didn't work out. We were so close. And just one wee fuck up. And it wasn't a fuck up we could help. In our case, it was a refereeing decision. If we want to pin it onto that. We did make a couple of fuck ups of our own. It's no direct translation. But and all you've got to do is, there's no point in he doesn't turn around the guy, the tactical unit who made the mistake. He's embarrassed. He's totally embarrassed. He just looks at him, doesn't say anything, doesn't do anything. He's not going to report him or anything like that. It's just one of these things that happens. There's no point in reprisals and getting really bitter about it. These things happen. You've just got to move on. And you can see probably where I'm taking. It's darkest just before the dawn, literally on Sunday. It's the 22nd, the 23rd, that is the darkest day of the year. I mean, that's why it's Christmas, because obviously the Christians didn't want to deny, if you want to win over pagans, you don't do it by telling them they can't have that big feast they have at the darkest moment of the year. So we turned it into Christmas as opposed to just the usual kind of binge that the pagans would have to light up the dark winter at its darkest moment. So it feels that it's at the moment it's darkest just before the dawn. This happened to us in 2019-20 when we lost to that Julian goal that was offside in the League Cup final, and then within a year we were absolutely romping to our first league title since being in the lower leagues. I think the same thing could happen here. Within a couple of weeks we'd won at Parkhead. This time we've got to make sure within a couple of weeks we win that game at Ibrox. The night is darkest just before the dawn. We need a bigger squad. Suter, his injury really cost us on Sunday as well. That can be a massive difference. He's going to be out for a while, a few weeks. We need the 2 days rest thing. Well, that's a result of us being in the Europa League as opposed to the Champions League. This is one of those kind of legacy things where we're just constantly getting pulled back by the fact that Celtic have been ahead for all those years that we were in the lower leagues, and then they were able to step up a gear when we come back into the top flight, and it keeps pulling us back. We keep getting these situations where we have to kind of overleap. We're exhausted by doing qualifying rounds and all that in Europe, and then we're in the lesser European tournament, and we end up having to claw our way back. We only get 2 days rest between a big European game against Spurs and playing that League Cup final. It's back to work for Rangers, and it'll be against Dundee, and I'm going to have to do a separate pod for that because there's been so much happening this week. I've not even talked about the fact Patrick Stewart come in. Patrick Stewart is our new CEO. He started on Monday. I didn't like him. That interview, he did 6 minute 52-second video on Rangers TV. I thought you looked like more of a dick than a prick. You know what I mean? We want a total prick, not just a bit of a dick. Quite big ears, very weirdly spoken. Talking about Manchester United. If you've been at Man United for 18 years, you're prick. No, it was as a way of saying Rangers are even more impressive or whatever. kind of butter us up and all that, but it was also it was all about him, you know. But he's done well with this. He's obviously made the SFA come out and say, actually, no, we made a complete arse of that. That was, you know, give him credit for that. You can't really complain. So he's made a good first impression on us. I don't tend to like the guys who come in. He was doing a kind of House of Commons versus House of Lords thing. You know, ultimately the new chairman, Fraser Thornton, he also kind of slipped in under the radar as far as I was concerned. The new chairman appointment, but thank God we've made that appointment, so things are looking good. In terms of the new boards, he's non-executive. He's non-executive, whereas I'm an executive CEO, but he's a non-executive chairman. So obviously I'll have to run everything past him, but really I'm the guy. I'm in here every day. I feel as if it was quite a kind of quietly, weirdly self-aggrandising little thing he did. But as far as I'm concerned, Marcus Rashford is obviously wanting away from Manchester United. We've got a transfer window coming up. He worked at Man United for 18 years, Patrick Stewart, as he keeps telling us. Get in there, make it happen. Make it happen. Get Rashford up here and make him either that or Shankland. They're much the same, Lawrence Shankland, and make them Rangers heroes. Fraser Thornton, our new chairman, he worked in, was it golf? Something to do with golf, something to do with booze. He's an accountant. So that's the three main Scottish things. You know, we're good with our money. Whiskey, you know, we're absolutely fantastic. Alcoholics. And golf, that's my real national sport. You know, we another major thing that we sold to America and the rest of the world when it comes to the corporate stuff. So all he's really got left to do is Rangers, as far as maybe that and become a heroin addict. But the main things that we do in Scotland, he's done them all now. So he's obviously got great experience. The fella seems like a good appointment and definitely a lot less toxic than that Tory chap who we're supposed to be getting, who like to use children's hospitals as political. Oh, I don't like him at all. So it's good we've got that sorted out. I was starting to lose the ability to be kind of sporting, to deny all my. I was starting to buy into it's a Celtic conspiracy, because we know for years, we've been getting told for years and years by Celtic that it's a conspiracy, that everyone's a conspiracy towards Rangers. You know, and they say it's not. Celtic fans do buy into that. Obviously, it comes from a kind of article of faith that Celtic supports. You don't want to be a corporate monster. You know, you get 60,000 all-seater stadium and you're in the Champions League every season, but you want to believe that they put upon rebels. So you're not just going for a few pints at the fit, but it's a cause. I feel as if that's a lot of why Celtic fans are so obsessed, particularly Peter Lawler, with us cheating. It's because they're judging us by their own standards. They're quite happy to cheat as long as it's for because they're up against the man. They're up against Great Britain, Rule Britannia, Rangers, the society that hates them. So anything's fair in that kind of unfair war. But so I think it makes they assume that we're trying to do the same kind of thing all the time, which we're not, because we are absolutely golden. But I think the good news is that the age of the pro-Rangers conspiracy in a country which, for the last decade and more, has been run by nationalists, and the Westminster government, it was Her Majesty's Customs and Excise that tried to bankrupt us for the sake of not doing it to Google or Starbucks. I think the Rangers the pro-Rangers conspiracy stuff can just get put in the bin. We had to spend our time, we had to go to the lower leagues and what have you. This country did absolutely zero to save us from the biggest humiliation, the biggest kind of boot to the balls, infrastructural and whatever, in the history of Scottish football. So I think for the entire 21st century, it's been this kind of double bluff from Celtic, and that's come to an end. And today it was just really nice to see the SFA just reviving that for old time's sake, you know, being really nice about the fact, really public about the fact they denied Rangers a trophy. And it's not conclusive in any way that they did actually deny us a trophy, but that mistake was conclusive. Anything else to mention? The B team won the Glasgow Cup on Monday night back at Hampden, beating Celtic. I think that also proof that it's a conspiracy again. They had big bad Rangers wanted retribution for being denied that penalty, for not winning that trophy on the Sunday. So there you go. We'll have that. We'll have that straight away. Well done, the B team. That was good. So Cortez and Matondo getting game time in that one. And FIFA and UEFA, some sort of PR group, has promoted the Unity League of 4 divisions to replace basically the Champions League and other European club competitions. The Super League still I mean, we get rid of it. We thought we fought it. We thought we'd get rid of the Super League a few years ago, match-going fans, but match-going fans are at best scenery, at worst a total inconvenience, I think, for UEFA and FIFA. This war they've got that's just utterly destroying football by just giving us far too much of it. The state of the World Cup, over 100 games at the next World Cup. This Club World Cup in the summertime, which is just, you know, the European competitions, we've still not played all our group games this season. There's another 2 to go, and we've played 6 already. It's absolutely unbelievable. So look out for European club competition being completely revolutionised. I think they're wanting 4 divisions. We're already go at 3 divisions. When you get promotion, if you win the Conference League, you're straight into the Europa League group stages the following season. You win the Europa League, you're straight into the Champions League group stages the following season. So UEFA have obviously been doing all this stuff to try and fend off any kind of Super League takeover, but it's just, it's not happening. It's not happening at all. They keep coming back, and money, I think, eventually will win. That was my 17th League Cup final. Scottish League Cup final on Sunday there. I've seen that's the second one I've saw gone 3 each and gone to penalties. We won the one against Aberdeen back in 87, 88, and we've lost this one. I saw a 2 each draw with Dundee United. Was that 2007, 2008? I went to penalties, won that one, and that was all the decisions had gone against Dundee United in that game. So these things, you know, kind of even themselves out, as they say. It was an engrossing game. I'm hoping by the end of the season we can look back on it and go, that was the moment. That was the moment we realised that Philip Clement, hard done to by referees. Was it 4 Rangers goals disallowed? 1 in each of 4 of the 5 games we played against Celtic last season. One of them under Michael Beale. I think they would all have given us the lead, or would the one in the game in April perhaps have been an equaliser at Ibrox before we eventually made it 2 each, I think. I'm not sure. I think it would have been. But we eventually made it 2 each to make it 3-2, then we equalised again. It's pretty much how the game went on Sunday, but I just hope Rangers have to come out now and react in a positive sense. I think the SFA statement, or the Wally Collins statement, if nothing else, it kind of countermands any chance of being bitterness amongst the Rangers, well, not amongst the Rangers support, but amongst Rangers players and a manager. It kind of puts you back. It knocks you, it's like, all right. There's nothing worse when you're just, they've been totally out of order, I'm ready to just sort them out, this is an absolute, and then the person goes to you, by the way, I was totally out of order there, I'm really sorry about that, oh man, what an idiot. You kind of go, all right, I was ready to gear, but aye, okay, no, you've admitted to it. Hopefully we can just conserve all our energy for playing better football, for getting ourselves through these next 3 games. Dundee, St Mirren and Motherwell away. Dundee Ibrox at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. First time this season it could be 3 o'clock on a Saturday at Ibrox. Nearly happened against Dundee United, and their bus was late, so let's see what happens on Saturday there. I think, troops, I'm definitely going to do a post-match reaction pod to the Dundee game from outside Ibrox, so I'll not do you wishing you a Merry Christmas and that, but I'm going to have to do another pod, aren't I? I'm going to have to do another wee preview pod for the Dundee game. It might not happen because Christmas is, as you know, there's wee nights out and things have been arranged. I'm running out of time to get a few things done, but hopefully I might manage to do a wee quick one, a wee 20-minute job or something with any injury news that's confirmed by the manager, and any more reaction to the SFA's admission that they got it seriously wrong on Sunday. But as I say, I would just like to, emphasise that it was just one incident. It's a major incident, could have given us a penalty, but the way that game was going, you can't say Celtic wouldn't have come back at us. If we had gone 4th, they would have had to gamble, maybe we would have picked them off more, maybe we'd end up winning the game 5 or 6-3. It was Celtic trying to get an equaliser, you don't know. But the main thing is, we did know that it was a bad decision, and it's quite a breath of fresh air that the SFA have come out and admitted it so completely. I'm supposed to talk about the trouble in the town, aren't I? I'm supposed to talk about the ultras. I'm not going to. If I do, I'll talk about it in a wee preview pod for the D games. But at worst, folks, I'll see you at the end of the D game outside Ibrox. Sorry this has been so long, but there's been so much happening, and a lot of it's tapped into so many things that I've been thinking about Rangers and their relationship with Celtic and the SFA for decades. And I'll see you on Saturday. Back to work.